that Tim could be here. For those of you who don't know, Friday was kind of a boring day for the Board of Regents last week. Not a lot going on. But I want to say thank you for having me. First of all, can we just give a round of applause for the staff and what that incredible lunch they did? Just really, really wonderful. So I thought what I would do is just spend a few minutes with you, sharing with you some of the early things that we found. I guess I've officially been on the job for about a month now. And it's been just such a blessing to us and our family. We just loved every minute of it. We love being back. We've, of course, been in the state of Nebraska, but being back in Lincoln, spent the last 12 years at Omaha. And, you know, so much of what I sort of anticipated or thought about the University of Nebraska really has come to fruition in my first month. You know, getting a chance to work hand in hand with Chancellor Green, and working with President Carter and some of the other university leaders really reinforced what I thought going into this job a month ago is that, and I said this at the press conference, is I really do think that the University of Nebraska is sort of in a sweet spot in terms of leadership. You know, we have some fun with Tim Clare, but Tim and our Board of Regents, I think, do a wonderful job of supporting the university, caring for the university, and helping us as we transition and traverse through some challenging times. So, kind of like going to UNO in 2009 when there were a few things that weren't communicated, I can only tell you that joining the University of Nebraska during this time in college athletics, this is not a boring time. This is an awful lot of fun, but a very challenging time. So what I thought I would do is kind of share some of the things that are our priorities. We've been working as a senior staff on and working with our head coaches. We certainly don't have all the answers. As I said, it is a challenging time. But then also at the end, I think the best thing to do is just open up and we'll have an open dialogue and you can ask me any questions that you want and we can work through some of those. So, you know, very early on, it was pretty obvious to me the importance of the Go Big project. And it's something that's a really big focus for us, obviously. Fundraising has gone very well for that project. We still are going to try to raise about $20 million to finish out the phase 2. Had a chance to kind of dive into what that facility looks like. And obviously, there's a lot of focus with football and the importance of having the type of facility to help our coaches manage a roster that looks a little bit different from some of our previous coaches. But one of the things that I'm really most proud of as a former student athlete, but also as the athletic director now, is the continued focus on students at the University of Nebraska. Obviously, we're very focused on winning. We're in the competition business. We get defined by wins and losses at the University of Nebraska, and we're comfortable with that. We understand that. But at the end of the day, we can't forget our mission, which is about student athletes. At the end of the day, every single person in our athletic department, including our coaches, has a job because we have 650 student athletes. And so I'm going to remain very focused on making sure that those student athletes have the tools necessary, not only while they're here, but when they're done playing, to be able to transition and ultimately become business owners and employees like you. So the Go Big project is very important to us because it's not just football, but it's all of our student athletes. It's about making sure that we have the type of programs, both academically and others, to support those students. Secondly, and I think you probably have all heard a lot about this, very important as well, is name, image, and likeness. You know, it's an area that we're all learning through. It's a real change. It is a bit uncomfortable trying to understand where the guardrail should be. Very simple questions about how do we handle the university marks and our branding. You know, people have worked an awful long time for a lot of years to protect the brand that is the University of Nebraska. And so we're being challenged and asked in ways to apply our brand and our marks in ways that, quite frankly, can be a little bit uncomfortable. But all this is evolving, all of it's changing. You may have read about Ohio State, kind of was an early one that went public with they were going to allow their student athletes to use the university marks. Their name, image, and likeness, and their ability to monetize their name, image, and likeness. And so there's a company called the Brander Group, and so some of these companies have been very wise about getting out and doing group licensing deals. And so if you as a student athlete want to be part of the new EA Sports college football video game that everybody wants to be a part of, There's group licensing deals already done. So we're working with university leadership. I think at the end of the day, what you'll probably end up seeing is the University of Nebraska will follow suit. We think it's probably best for us to proactively work hard to create those guardrails so that we're managing our grants as best as we possibly can. The other challenging thing is if we have policies that don't allow our student athletes to use our logo and use our marks, what are we going to do if they choose to use them anyway? Are we going to suspend them? Are we going to kick them out of school? And so, I think we have to think through all of those things in a very thoughtful way. But we are working very, very hard to support our student athletes' ability to monetize around NIL. We're very concerned and very focused on making sure that our student athletes have the proper education and the tools necessary to navigate through, a pretty challenging marketplace for them. This is very new to them. Let's be honest, there's a lot of wonderful companies that are doing the right things. They're trying to help these student athletes. There's probably a few others that are a little more nefarious, if you will, in their approach. So we're going to be very focused on that. COVID response. We were all hoping that we only had to do that one time. And obviously that's all changed for us again. And so really proud of our team. Dr. Albers, Mark Meyer, Jerry Weber, and our team worked collaboratively with UNMC, Chris Pratable, and the whole group, and have created some updated COVID protocols. We've been working with the Big Ten Conference. All of the schools have submitted their plans for how we're going to handle whether it be vaccinations, education on vaccinations, mandates, those types of things, and then the Big Ten is going to give us a little bit of direction about Big Ten policies moving forward. Really, really proud of our coaches. We do not have a vaccine mandate at the University of Nebraska. And so about a month ago, when I first started, I know what the vaccine rates were, and we weren't where we needed to be. And ultimately, I give a lot of our coaches a lot of credit, including Coach Frost, who went to work really hard on educating our student athletes about the benefits of being vaccinated and the competitive benefits of being vaccinated. At the end of the day, unlike last year, we think in large part, you all probably read about North Carolina State and what happened to their baseball program. At the end of the day, for me, this is about winning and losing, and our ability to field a healthy team gives us the best opportunity to win a football game, or a basketball game, or a volleyball game. And so our coaches worked hard. We brought in speakers, and I'm really, really pleased. I just got an update last night on our rates. We think there's going to be some additional positive movement there, and so I think we're going to be in a really good shape as we enter the fall season. So our COVID response will be really important. Our budget plan. This is really interesting to me as well. Obviously, I spent the last 12 years in a little different budget orientation and process, and managing through every single penny that existed within the athletic department. But I would suggest to you a similar approach is happening with us here at the University of Nebraska and Lincoln as well. If you think about every single component of our revenue streams having some potential challenge, we took our multimedia rights in-house. So today, the University of Nebraska is no longer, in partnership with Learfield IMG. So we've taken on that risk. We feel good about where we are. We've got some wonderful partners, but we also have some expense that's associated with us that heretofore we didn't have. So that'll be really important to us. I think we're going to be able to hit our gross revenue numbers there. But again, on the ticket revenue, we're really, really pleased where we are with football. We don't have any announcements yet to make about the sellout streak, but we're feeling really good about it. It's very obvious to me, it's very important to me that we continue the sellout streak, but I have been so pleasantly surprised about just how critically important this is to our fans, too. And I always just viewed the sellout streak as this is for the fans. This is the fan sellout streak. And so I think we're going to be in pretty good shape there. But you can imagine the challenge with COVID and our tickets, right? So if we can't field the team, unlike the past, where perhaps it's a no contest and you're trying to reschedule, there's a reasonable chance that it's a forfeit and a loss. So you can imagine the impact to the athletic department if you're playing a game, especially a game guarantee, where we're guaranteeing an opponent X amount of dollars to come play. We can't field a team. We forfeit. And you can imagine, the revenue hit that is to our athletic department. So really, really pleased and proud of our coaches. They've showed really, really strong leadership in this area. And it's a difficult topic, and it's one that we recognize. There are very strong feelings with our student athletes in each of these areas. And so being respectful and using education as our means to help some of our student athletes get a better handle on it. So budget will be pretty important as well. The governance structure of college athletics. First month on the job. I think what you're going to see is a big shift and a change in how college athletics looks going forward. I'm certainly not going to share any details or confidential information that the Big Ten and others have been working on, but I can sort of hint at, you've probably seen, it's public, or there's been talk about an alliance with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC. And so I think as we move forward and we look at how college athletics get structured, I think you will see some change in the governance structure of how college football is applied. And I think you'll see some of that power and that structure being shifted from the NCAA and perhaps at the college level. So our college conference level, our conference commissioners and those alliances will be very, very important as we sit at the table and try to make sure that we have a governance structure that's compatible with the mission and values that schools like ours in the Big Ten hold dear. And so I feel really good about that as well. Won't go into additional detail, but a lot of planning is coming in place. A lot of meetings are scheduled both in Chicago and Washington and others. So what I'm basically telling you is that there's going to be some change. There's going to be a major shift, I think, in intercollegiate athletics. It doesn't mean that it's all bad. It doesn't mean that it's bad for Nebraska. In fact, some of the early things that I've seen, I think, are very good for us. I think it's an opportunity for us to continue being in leaders that we really care about. But I think back to my early days in Omaha, and I can't remember if it was Coach Osborne or if it was one of the donors I was dealing with. They said, "Welcome to Nebraska, Trev." He said, "Nebraskans expect and demand progress, but they hate change. So good luck." So I'm assuming that this room is filled with some of those same type of people. So we would ask for your understanding and assistance as we navigate through some of these. There will be some changes. There will be some things that, quite frankly, are out of our control. But I think in the end, if we stay together and keep working together, good things will happen. Another real area of priority for us is diversity and inclusion. And, it's an often misunderstood area, I think, within, organizations and athletic departments. But, at the end of the day, we want to be elite. We want to win. And I had an experience from 1989 to 1993 where we wanted everything. We didn't just win football games. We were winning in the number of academic All-Americans, and we were winning in the number of people that were top 6 and top 8 award winners. And, we were recognized across the board at an elite level. And so for us, again, everything you'll kind of notice kind of goes back to the competitive piece for me. At the end of the day, I want to win. And the best chance we have to win is to be able to have a culture and an organization that is able to recruit and retain the highest quality talent we can find. And so I think that'll be an important part of what we're doing going forward. Finally, we're going to stay focused on our student-athlete success, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Really, really proud of this. Dennis LeBlanc, who has been serving Husker Athletics for a long time, and Keith Zimmer, I know Troy Branch and I, we were roommates in 1989, 903 HOL. Troy was from Camden, New Jersey, and Trev was from Cedar Falls, Iowa. We couldn't have been more similar. Troy and I became great friends, and we shared a real love and commitment on the academic side as well. Troy was a little smarter than I was. He went on to law school and has done great things. But this last semester, the cumulative GPA of all of our student athletes during the pandemic was a 3.34. That's really impressive, and I'm really, really proud of that. So we want to continue as we talk about the business model of athletics, as we talk about changes potentially and alliances, and we're talking a lot about things that we easily lose our focus. At the end of the day, we're still educating young men and young women. And so it's going to be important to me, and it's our priority as a senior staff, that we continue keeping that as a focus. Until somebody tells me different, they're student athletes. And I have benefited so greatly because this university cared enough, and Coach Osborne cared enough to hold me and our classmates accountable in terms of taking our schoolwork seriously and getting an education. So those are sort of our priorities, and I think you can understand then why. And at the press conference, when I mentioned 4 key areas of importance for me, when you think about trust, and you think about work habits, and you think about unity of purpose and teamwork, and programs that reflect Nebraskans, when you think about that list of priorities that we have, there's no chance we have as an athletic department, as a university, as a community, if all of us together don't share those similar values. I mean, we are going to have to grind away as an administration. This is going to take a lot of hard work. Because, by the way, there's a lot of other institutions that are trying to position themselves to win, too. And so the only way we're going to be able to get this done is we're going to have a lot of trust in our athletic department, both administratively and with our coaches. And to be quite honest with you, we've come a long way already. We're doing a lot of communication, but the reality is, with every organization, there are silos. This is not the time in the University of Nebraska, either as an institution or in the athletic department, to have silos, to have people with their own personal agendas. We're going to absolutely have to have developed trust. We're going to have unity of purpose, and we're going to have people working together, or we're not going to be successful in the priorities that I just listed. And so, I guess my commitment to you is, number one, this will be an athletic department that works extraordinarily hard. We will never lose a game because someone outworked us. And that's just going to be the culture of who we are. They can be a little bit more talented, maybe they'll be a little smarter, and especially in the athletic director side, that'll be pretty easy for a lot of Big Ten schools. But we'll be willing to pay the price, and we're going to work really hard, and we're going to do it together. And so it's beyond just the walls of the athletic department. It's a community like this. It's business leaders and people like you who care. It's going to take all of us. And so I want to thank you, first of all, for being here, but I also want to thank you for your previous investment into the University of Nebraska. I was a beneficiary of that. Troy was a beneficiary of that, and some others here as well. Steve Glenn was a beneficiary of that, and we're just really, really proud to be Huskers and proud of the support that you gave us. So with that, I'm going to stop rambling, and maybe we can open it up and have some questions, if that's all right. Dr. Claire? Okay, well, thanks for... The only question, we can't have one from Troy Brash because we're not sure what's going to come out of his mouth. Yes, sir.
After the Garth Brooks and the success of that concert, is the university going to duplicate that in the future, do you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was a good success, and we're really proud of that. Haven't gotten the final report yet, both financially in terms of and some of the operational things, but it was a huge undertaking for our staff. And I think one of the things that we learned was we do want to do more events like this. And I think that's part of what I was talking about. We're going to have to be entrepreneurial in our approach. We're going to have to get at every single piece of revenue we can find. We're going to have to look for efficiencies in our expenses. And the better business, the more disciplined, professional business we can run, the more dollars we'll have to be able to invest in our programs, our student athletes and coaches, to ensure that we have the kind of success that you all and I want as an athletic department. I think we can get better there, and we will get better there. But I think the Garth Brooks concert was a perfect example of that type of thinking, and certainly I had nothing to do with that. I applaud the previous leadership for working on that, and I know President Carter and Chancellor Green were involved as well. But perhaps we wouldn't do it 2 weeks prior to the first home football game. The great thing about doing events like this is it's an opportunity to learn. And so I looked at it as, there's some things that we need to do better. I think we were out of Valentino's Pizza at 5:30. Is that true? You can't be out of Valentino's Pizza at 5:30. So I think what happened was, we were doing the best we could to kind of looking at previous experiences, but I think some of the businesses in the Haymarket have had a challenging time finding enough staff. And so the rush of people that came, there wasn't enough food and available staff to serve those people. So they said, well, at least we'll just go to the stadium and we can eat there. And what's to their surprise? They couldn't do that either. So we could get better there. I think from a health and wellness perspective, we had a couple incidents that I'm aware of, but nothing major. Again, still waiting to get that final report, but a lot to learn. I thought it was really cool. I think people had this pent-up energy and were just happy to be out. It just happened to be a beautiful evening that we had. I texted Coach Cook in the middle of it and I said, John, that's it. We're playing an outdoor volleyball game. We got some claps, all right. So, I will tell John you approved, right? Outdoor volleyball? And he goes, well, the weather would have to be perfect. And you know how coaches are. So, but yes, I think we can think about those types of things and creatively find ways and use all of our facilities. It's one of the things that's a little bit different here that I've seen than in Omaha. UNO, most every facility that we built, a lot of our donors was actually part of the pledge agreement. 33% of its usage was required to be community usage. And I think we need to do a better job here of including community where we can, where it makes sense, and get our community involved in usage and those types of things. I think that's an opportunity for us.
Do you have any sense of the timing of the alliance, the realignment, the restructuring, whatever you want to call it? It seems like things, you don't see anything and all of a sudden there's a big explosion. So end of the year, do you have any idea?
There is a timeline. There's multiple timelines that have been established. And I think why there's some hesitancy about communicating any timelines is because just like with COVID, things happen that either expedite or slow down that timeline. And nobody wants to be held accountable to a timeline. And so I think the most important thing is that the right conversations have happened. There seems to be a significant interest. I will tell you that it was, I thought, encouraging. I've been on several Big Ten AD calls. And as you can imagine, every single one of us on these calls has a conflict. We all have an agenda. I care about the University of Nebraska and our athletic department. I'm not saying I don't care about Northwestern or Iowa, but I care about Nebraska. So, that didn't come out wrong. But my point is, what was really neat about this was everybody on the call felt really good about it. And so there was some unanimity of the ADs in terms of this is the right approach moving forward. And so, the devil's always in the details. There's a lot of stuff to work through, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at college football, having more than 3 or 4 teams consistently in the playoff, the same teams, expanding, college football interests, you can just look at television ratings and recognize that thinking a little bit differently probably isn't bad. But what the specific timelines are, part of it is contracts with the existing college football playoff. Part of it's when people's multimedia rights expire. So you can connect some of those dots, but there are multiple timelines based on, what could happen. I would say it's not going to be in 20 years, though. Yes, sir.
With the switch to in-house media, are you anticipating a similar game day experience to what we've seen, or are you anticipating changes?
Great question. My understanding is you will see a lot of similar in-game experience, but I do believe now that we, quote, own that inventory, it gives us an opportunity to try something. So I can't imagine that it would be, a complete 180 from what we've done previously, but it does give us some ownership in terms of trying new things. It's one of the things, and I know it's a little bit different here in an organization like the Husker Athletic Department, but I believe strongly in giving your staff the opportunity and the courage to try things, take chances. And at the end of the day, if we do something different and it doesn't work, then we just own it and say, we failed. We'll try something different, right? So I do think you'll see a little bit of a change, but oftentimes a lot of those are directly tied to the sponsor itself. But I wouldn't expect a drastic change, my understanding. Now saying that, you'll probably see a drastic change.
Talk a little bit about the transfer portal with college athletes. That thing.
Yeah, so, you know, I've always been someone I'm pro-student athlete. I'm pro young men and young women have an opportunity. But I will tell you that the transfer portal presents unique challenges. Because what every head coach is trying to do is to create a culture, right? So in our athletic department, we want to have a specific culture. We want to have a way of operating. We want to have a set of expectations. You combine the transfer portal, which now has no inter-conference transfer rules, and name, image, and likeness. And you can see why every coach is saying, what? Let's give an example here. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say your starting quarterback is playing, and he has some NIL deals that equal $100,000 a year. XYZ school in your conference could be your chief rival. Reaches out and says, you're only getting $100,000? We'll give you $200,000. And your starting quarterback next year is a starting quarterback at a school that's your chief rival, and there's no rules against that. So again, as fans, as administration, we need to be prepared for things looking a lot different. Now, what I often think is, you know, in life sometimes, right, when you realize we need to make a change, we make this drastic change, and then you kind of pull back and say, okay, we went too far. We might see some of that in college athletics where we've kind of went way out here and then realized, well, this is really counterproductive. Because some of this, while we're getting this right, you could make the argument that this isn't all necessarily in the best interest of the student athlete. And so those are the types of issues that we're working through. And so we don't have a lot of boring days. But I do think being a head football, basketball, soccer, a head coach in the Big Ten in 2021 and on got a lot harder. But I think that's where we can win, because we can create the kind of culture and family that people want to be a part of. That's where I'm focused. I'm focused on our total culture. You know, come to this place. It's well documented. We were huge Iowa Hawkeye fans. I grew up in Cedar Falls, Iowa. And I came to Lincoln because I could feel it. This place was different. It wasn't the stadium. It was the people. It was how much people cared. I could tell the community really cared about everything was Cornhusker. The road was Cornhusker. I grew up in. And our family was like, wow, this place is really serious. You know, Troy, wasn't it? You could just feel, and then you meet with the staff, and you could tell they genuinely cared about you, and they wanted to help you, and that's why I came here. And then there's another guy named Tom Osborne guy that was somewhat important too. You probably never heard of him.
One more question? Nick, you didn't finish up.
I got one. I'll ask one.
We get two. Okay, you go first.
So on the conference piece of it, you talk about these associations and whatnot. And can you just give like your perspective on why you see all that happen? Sort of the power shift from the NCAA to the conferences, what the original purpose of conference alignment was versus what it's becoming.
Well, I think there's a couple components, and there's a lot of nuances to it. So I want to be very careful here, but I'll just kind of give a little bit of a perspective, and I don't really have any data to back this up. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is driven by resources. It's positioning to make sure, you know, if XYZ school is getting $55 million annually from their rights fees, and we're getting 30, that's pretty tough, because resources don't guarantee success, but it gives you an opportunity. So I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. I think it's also the reality that, you know, the NCAA is, I don't know how many members are in the NCAA Division I, including UNO, right? So you have challenges that FBS football deals with in every day that a lot of the other institutions really can't understand. And when you think about everybody having one vote it gets challenging for the FBS schools to have ideas and thoughts put forward that never get approved because it's not in the best interest of the other institution. So I think you could see a little bit of that. But then I think also back to the business side and the revenue piece, a lot of it too is positioning for power to help have influence on what that restructuring looks like. And that's really, really important. You know, the Big Ten, which I applaud, I think you can go too far, but is very, very mission focused about not just being football, basketball. They are very mission focused as well on the academic side and others. And so, if the governance structure is in place that's counterproductive to the values of the Big Ten, that's something that we want to try to avoid at all costs. And so a lot of this posturing, positioning I would assume, is a result of trying to make sure that you have the right seat at the table and have the influence you want to help craft the future of what it looks like. The truth of the matter is, nobody knows what it looks like. So just read with a little bit of hesitancy. Anybody who purports to have all the answers and here's what's going to happen, they don't. And it's also probably not real comfortable to say, but the networks have a very significant say in what's happening. They just do. Again, it's uncomfortable. You can make the argument it shouldn't be that way. I don't disagree. We're just trying to recognize what the realities are and then find a solution to be competitive and successful given what those new realities, how they manifest themselves. One more back here.
If name, image, and likeness has been around in the early 90s, what would Trev and Troy have put their name, image, and likeness to?
Well, Eric Crouch was just in my office yesterday and I said, man, you missed it. Sorry, Eric. But you paved the way for these kids. Don't you feel good about that? No, I don't know. It would certainly have looked different. We all, when we exhausted our eligibility, we would try to do some things, and so that was fun. But I will say this too. This is going to make Troy and I sound really old, but did we have cell phones? We didn't have cell phones. When you think about the student athletes today, so there's a lot of talk about mental health. It's real. It really is. But think about what they're dealing with. And some of it they're choosing to do, right? But you have your cell phone, all of their social media stuff. Now they're thinking about doing NIL deals. Think about where their brain is. And they're trying to balance football and all the expectations there. All of what happens on social media they're trying to balance getting their education in 4 years. I mean, it's a whole different deal that we're asking these young men and young women to deal with intellectually and just from a psychology perspective. But I think Troy would have probably been aligned with someone like Emeritus. He probably would have had a huge Emeritus NIL. That's just my guess. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
What a great way to start Face the Chamber. To play off his comment, I can just feel